Everyone keeps repeating the same tired line about the wrap dress, that it flatters everybody, that it was designed to work on anyone, that if it doesn't look right on you, the problem must be you. That is wrong. The wrap dress was never a one-size-flatters-all garment. It was a shapeshifter, and almost no one is teaching you how to shift it. By the end of the next few minutes, you will see the exact same wrap dress reworked 5 different ways, one for each of the 5 most common body shapes over 60, and you will finally recognize which version is yours, not just be told to go find your fit somewhere out there in a store dressing room under bad lighting. You will know where the tie belongs on your torso, how the overlap should sit, which fabric weight works with your frame, and which small adjustment turns a dress that felt wrong into a dress that finally looks like it was cut for you. Because here is what happens if you skip this. You keep buying the same wrap dress every couple of years, hoping this one will be the one. It arrives. It disappoints. You blame your body. You hang it in the back of the closet next to the other 3. And the 5th version, the one for the shape most women over 60 actually have, is the one almost nobody talks about, so stay with us, because that is where this file cracks wide open. Welcome to the Style Dossier. If dressing after 60 has started to feel like a guessing game, hit subscribe and join us, because every case we open is built to give you back the clarity department stores stopped offering years ago. Before we open the first file, one number needs to sit on the table. Research reported by Loughborough University found that moving a tape measure by just 1 centimeter shifted 40% of women into a different body shape category. 40%. That is not a rounding error. That is proof that these 5 shapes are starting points, not verdicts, and that the same dress can and should be styled more than one way. Now the case file. The garment on the table is a mid-weight jersey wrap dress. Long sleeves, knee-length skirt, a single tie at the side seam. Dusty rose, because the color is quiet enough to let the styling do the talking. That is the constant. Everything else is about to change. Picture a woman standing in her bedroom on a Tuesday morning, already dressed for lunch with her daughter-in-law, tugging at the front of her wrap dress in the mirror. The fabric keeps pulling sideways, the tie is sitting exactly where the tag suggested. And she is quietly deciding that her hips are the problem. They are not, the tie is. This is the pear, or triangle, and the fix starts with where that tie lands. When the lower body carries more visual weight than the shoulders, tying the wrap at the exact natural waist can drag the eye down and outward. Raise the tie point roughly 2 to 3 inches higher on the torso, just under the rib cage, and let the skirt release below. The V of the neckline stays open. A slim scarf in a warmer accent color, sage against the rose, or a pair of longer earrings pulls the eye up toward the collarbone. Utah State University's design principles are clear on this. Emphasis and proportion decide where the eye stops, and you get to place the stop yourself. But here is the small warning that comes with pear styling, and it matters. A sharply contrasting belt in a dark color, cinched hard at the true waist against a light dress, creates a strong horizontal line right where the hips are widest. New Mexico State University's fashion guide is direct about that. Contrasting tops and bottoms create a horizontal cut that tends to shorten the figure. That is not a rule about right or wrong, that is a rule about where you want the eye to pause. Now flip the file. Wide shoulders. Narrower hips. A frame that carried strength through decades of lifting grandchildren and grocery bags and garden soil. This is the inverted triangle, and the same wrap dress needs the opposite treatment. The mistake most women in this shape make is doubling down at the shoulders, adding a bold collar, a bright scarf, a statement necklace, and wondering why the dress keeps looking top-heavy. Therefore, quiet the top, keep the neckline clean, no scarf, no chunky necklace, small earrings only. Move the visual interest downward. A slightly fuller skirt hem if the wrap allows for a pleat, a shoe with a soft warm tone that catches the eye, maybe a thin belt tied low and loose to introduce a second horizontal line just above the hip. The wrap tie itself can sit right at the natural waist, but the story is happening below it. You are giving the eye somewhere new to travel. And if you are thinking, wait, which of these 2 so far actually sounds like you, pause here for a second. Tell us in the comments, are you a 1, the pear, or a 2, the inverted triangle? Just the number, and if this case file is already earning its keep, tap the like button so the algorithm keeps sending it to women who need to hear it. Case 3 is the one almost every styling video gets wrong. The rectangle. Shoulders, waist and hips reading close to the same width from the front. Retail anthropometric surveys have flagged rectangle and pear as the 2 most common shapes among women over 50. And yet most wrap dress advice is written as if every viewer has a dramatic hourglass hiding under her clothes. She does not. Only around 8% of women naturally have that hourglass ratio, which means the other 92% are being sold a fantasy every time a magazine says the wrap dress will nip you in at the middle. It will not nip you in if there is nothing to nip. Therefore, you build the waist visually instead. The tie needs to be firm, deliberate, and placed at your actual natural waist, which is worth double-checking because New Mexico State University's fitting guidance points out that the natural waistline sits at a different vertical spot on every body, and a standard wrap dress tie can land 2 inches too high or too low without you realizing. Find yours by bending sideways and marking the crease. That crease is your waist, not what the pattern says, not what the mannequin shows. Yours, then create emphasis at that exact spot. A narrow belt in a tonal shade, taupe on rose, gold on sage, so it defines without cutting. Keep the skirt clean below, keep the neckline soft above. The eye now has a clear focal point, and the rectangle reads as a defined silhouette without any pretending. This is the one that changes everything for the largest group of women watching, and it is almost never the version shown in the ads. The fourth file is where the tension in most closets actually lives. Fuller through the middle, weight carried around the ribs and stomach rather than the hips. Doctors call it a lot of names, stylists call it apple or oval. Women who have lived in these bodies for the last 20 years call it every dress I try clings in the wrong place. Here is where the wrap dress can become a friend, but only if you stop fighting the fabric. 2 changes matter. First, the wrap overlap has to be generous, meaning the front panel needs to cross well past the side seam, not just meet it, so the wrap does not gap or slide open when you sit down. A discreet snap sewn just above the tie, or a slim camisole underneath, solves the neckline anxiety in about 90 seconds of tailoring. Second, the fabric weight has to be right. Textile research from the University of Leeds defines drape as the way fabric deforms under its own weight, and it is influenced by fiber content, thickness, and finishing. Translation: a thin, clingy jersey will map every contour. A slightly heavier jersey, or a jersey blended with a small amount of structure, will skim instead. Same dress, different bolt of fabric, completely different story. The tie itself sits softly at the smallest visible point of the torso, which for many apple shapes is just under the bust rather than at the true waist. Release the fabric below, let it fall, no belt on top of the tie, no double cinching, no fighting. The wrap does the work if you let it. And if you have been waiting for the 5th version, the one for the shape almost nobody dresses correctly, this is it, and it may not be the one you expect. Because here is where most videos would end with the hourglass and call it done. We are not doing that. The 5th file is the balanced curvy figure, a body where the bust and hips are close in measurement, the waist is defined but not dramatically nipped, and the proportions read as gently rounded rather than sharply cut. This is what a lot of women over 60 actually become after decades of life, hormonal shifts and softer musculature, and it is almost never named as its own shape. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's notes on the original 1974 Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress describe it as part of the American sportswear tradition of wrapping, a garment built on overlap and tie, not on structural darts. That original design assumed a soft, moving body, not a mannequin. Therefore, the styling here is about preservation, not correction. Tie at the true waist. Keep the overlap deep enough that the front panels never separate when you cross your legs. Choose a V-neck depth that shows collarbone but does not require a safety pin. And here is the fabric note that changes everything for this figure. Reach for a knit with a small percentage of structure, a ponte, a heavier rayon jersey, a knit with recovery. The old-school silk jersey drapes beautifully, but can also cling in ways that feel exposing on a softer body. The updated fabric skims. Same wrap, same tie, different hand of fabric, different woman in the mirror. Now step back and look at what just happened on the table. 1 dress, 5 bodies, 5 completely different silhouettes, and not a single one required a different size or a different cut. The tie moved, the overlap shifted, the fabric weight changed, the accent color relocated. That is the whole trick, and it is the trick nobody tells you at the register when you are buying the dress. Which brings us to the second question worth answering out loud. Of those 5 versions, pear with the raised tie, inverted triangle with the quiet top, rectangle with the built waist, apple with the generous overlap, or the balanced curvy figure with the structured knit, which one finally sounded like your body? Type the number in the comments. 1 through 5. Reading every response is how future case files get built. And the women who share their number always end up recognizing themselves in the next video too. There is one more layer worth adding before this file closes, because the wrap dress does not exist in a vacuum. Color contrast matters more after 60 than it did at 40. Updated color analysis systems, including revised editions of Color Me Beautiful. Note that natural pigment softens with age, hair lightens, skin tone gentles, eye contrast lowers, and a very high contrast outfit that looked sharp at 40 can start to look severe against softer coloring at 65. Therefore, the accessory choices that go with your wrap dress matter as much as the tie point. The University of Delaware's design guide defines analogous colors as those sitting next to each other on the wheel, and complementary colors as those directly across. For a quieter, more harmonious effect that suits softer coloring, reach for analogous, rose with warm taupe, sage with cream, dusty blue with soft lavender. For a stronger statement on a day that calls for it, reach for complementary, but let one color dominate and the other whisper, not equal shouting. And here is the small aside worth admitting. Not every rule holds for every woman. Some pairs look extraordinary with a low-slung belt because their proportions carry it. Some rectangles want no waist definition at all and prefer a straight, uninterrupted line. Some apples adore a clingy fabric because it makes them feel powerful, not exposed. The 5 files above are starting points, not sentences. Lotbro said it in the numbers. 1 centimeter of tape can move you into a different category, which means your best version might live between 2 of these versions, and that is not a failure of the system. That is the system working correctly. Here is the quick recap, because a good file always ends with a summary tab. The pair raises the tie about 2 to 3 inches above the natural waist and lifts the eye to the shoulders with a scarf or earring. The inverted triangle quiets the top, cleans the neckline, and moves interest below the belt line. The rectangle finds the true natural waist and builds a focal point there with a tonal belt over a firm tie. The apple chooses a generous overlap, a softer knit with a little structure, and ties just under the bust rather than at the middle. The balanced curvy figure preserves the classic wrap, deep overlap, tie at the natural waist, structured knit, because the original 1974 design was built for exactly that softness. And underneath all 5, the accessory palette leans analogous and warm for softer coloring, complementary only when a stronger statement is wanted. The whole point of opening this case file was not to hand you a rulebook, it was to hand you back the mirror. For years, the message aimed at women over 60 has been that certain dresses just do not work for certain bodies, so give up, cover up, or settle. That is not true. The dress was never the problem. The instructions were incomplete. The wrap dress hanging in your closet right now, the one you almost donated last spring, pull it out this week. Try the tie 2 inches higher, try the overlap deeper, try a tonal belt instead of a black one, try a slightly heavier knit next time you shop. One small adjustment is often the entire difference between a dress that hangs in the back and a dress that becomes the one you reach for on the mornings that matter. That is how the Style Dossier closes every file, not with a verdict, with a version of you that finally fits. We will see you in the next case.